Walter White dies alone in a lab. Not at home, not in a hospital bed, not surrounded by the family he swore he was doing this for. He bleeds out caressing the gleaming steel of the thing that killed him and made him feel alive. So here's the question. How many times before this moment could he have walked away clean? And why didn't he? Because it's not like the show doesn't give him exits. It gives him a ridiculous number of exits. Season 1, that first cook in the RV. The shower right after where he's shaking, gasping, and then you see it on his face. Not just fear, it's exhilaration. Think about it. This is a dying chemistry teacher who just felt more powerful in one weekend than in the last 16 years at the car wash and the classroom. And that's the lie, the big one. I'm doing this for my family. On paper, it sounds noble. At the time, you almost buy it because the cancer diagnosis is fresh and the medical bills are terrifying. But here's the thing. The real prison for Walter White is never the cartel or the DEA or even his cancer. It's his pride. It's that desperate, hungry need to be seen as brilliant, as dangerous as the guy who knocks. So in this video, we're going to treat Breaking Bad like a crime scene, not the meth crimes, the psychological ones. We're going to move chronologically, from that first cook all the way to the final lab, and track every major off-ramp the story hands Walt. The moment Skyler offers a way out with the car wash, the night he stares at that impossible pile of money in the storage unit, the obsessive spiral in Fly, where he basically admits he missed his perfect death window and kept going anyway. Each time he could stop. Each time, he walks right back to Heisenberg. On the surface, the narrative is simple. Man gets sick, man provides for family, man goes too far. But still, another missed opportunity to see what's really going on. Because if you line up the clues, a different pattern becomes obvious. Every time the family is safe, every time the money is enough, Walt finds a new, very suspicious reason to stay in the game. College funds, legacy, one more cook. It's like he's laundering his ego through his kid's future. To be fair, even Walt lies to himself about this for a long time. That's why we're going to break down specific scenes where the mask slips. The steam-fogged shower after the first cook, the car wash buyout that could have solved everything, the storage unit money mountain that makes Skyler say, "How much is enough?" The Fly monologue where Walt basically confesses he didn't really want out. Hear me out. By the time we get back to that final image in the lab, you might realize Walter White never truly intended to stop. The family man was the cover story. Heisenberg was who he always wanted to be, and once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. So to really see why Walter White could never stop, you need a framework. Not just he's a bad guy now, but a three-part lens that explains every choice he makes from the pilot to that final lab floor. Pride, power, and the myth of the family man. Start with pride. Walt's need for recognition isn't a side trait, it's the engine. He's the underpaid genius who got cut out of gray matter. The guy washing wheels at the car wash while former students mock him. On paper, cooking meth is about money, but think about it. The first time someone calls his product the bomb, you can almost see his spine straighten. This is the first clue that what he really wants is to be seen as exceptional again. Then you have the taste for power, not just survival, not just providing, actual enjoyment of danger and control. Every time he walks into a room as Heisenberg and people flinch, that's a hit of something he's been starved of his entire adult life. The bald head, the hat, the voice, that's not a disguise. That's wish fulfillment. To be fair, the show lets you write it off as necessity at the time. But here's the thing. Those little smirks after a close call, the way he lingers in the moment, those are not the reactions of a man desperate to get out. Which brings us to the myth of the family man. This is the cover story he sells to Skyler, to Hank, and most importantly, to himself. "I'm doing it for my family" sounds noble, so it lets him ignore that he's chasing something much darker. By the finale, when he finally says, "I did it for me, I liked it, I was good at it," the mask drops. But the clues were evident from day one. The show actually tells you that. Vince Gilligan's whole pitch was turning Mr. Chips into Scarface. That's not a maybe. That's the destination. Cancer isn't the cause of Walt's transformation, it's the excuse. The permission slip. From the pilot onward, the story is about a man who already had the potential for Scarface inside him, just waiting for the right justification. So here's how we're going to track it. We're going to move chronologically, watching the escalation. Early on, it's subtle. A small smile when the meth cooks perfectly. A tiny lie to Skyler that didn't need to be that specific. A little thrill when he stands up to someone he never would have challenged before. Later, the show hands him giant, flashing exit ramps. the car wash buyout that covers his needs, Gus's lab with a finite contract, even the moment he has more money than he can physically launder. Each time he could stop logistically. He doesn't. So we'll separate those two questions. Could he have stopped in terms of money, danger, cartel heat? Often, yes. Could he have stopped psychologically, with that ego and that growing addiction to power? Hear me out. That answer is always no. And the first real point of no return might be a scene you barely noticed. Walt in the shower after the first cook. On a first watch, it plays like relief. But when you know where he's headed, that moment looks a lot more like a man falling in love with who he just became. But that shower moment only makes sense when you rewind, because Walt doesn't become Heisenberg in the desert. He's been training for it his entire boring, humiliating adult life. Pre-cancer Walter White is already a man who can't stop. He just happens to be stuck on quit. High school chemistry teacher. Underpaid. Disrespected. Then he clocks in at the car wash, scrubbing rims in a green apron while teenagers laugh at him. Think about it. The guy who helped found Gray Matter is now wiping tire sludge off some stranger's BMW, the birthday party. This is where the wound is obvious. Hank shows up loud, armed, and adored. He's the DEA hero with the gun on the table, telling wild stories about drug busts. Skyler teases Walt about his age, his manhood, even his veggie bacon. Everyone laughs. Walt does that tight little smile, like he's in on the joke. But here's the thing, he's the joke. You can literally watch him disappear in his own home. Junior is glued to Hank, hanging on every word about bad guys and raids. Skyler is more engaged with Hank's stories than Walt's entire existence. The most dangerous man in the room is treated like a sitcom dad who got lost on the wrong set. To be fair, at the time, you probably just saw it as awkward family banter. But on a rewatch, it's a giant red flag. This is a man quietly choking on his own irrelevance. And then there's Gray Matter, the original I'm Out. Walt walks away from the company he co-founded, from the science that should have made him rich and respected, and watches Gretchen and Elliot become exactly what he should have been. Every time that name comes up, his face changes. It's not subtle. It's rage that's been aging like bad wine. Hear me out. Gray Matter is Walt's first catastrophic quit. He doesn't just leave a job. He abandons the one thing that could have proved he was extraordinary. That decision haunts him so much that when meth shows up later as a new path to significance, his subconscious has already made a promise. This time, I don't walk away. Look at the visual clues the show keeps throwing at you. Walt in that ridiculous green apron, literally on his knees cleaning other people's cars. Hank on TV bragging about a huge meth bust while Walt stands in the background, silent. Junior rewinding Hank's news segment like it's a superhero movie. Every frame is telling Walt the same story. You are the least important man in your own life. So when the cancer diagnosis lands, it doesn't create Heisenberg. It just gives him permission. The clock is ticking. The money excuse is convenient. And suddenly any door that leads to feeling powerful again looks like destiny. Once he finds one that actually works, how is this guy, this wounded, passed-over genius, ever supposed to let go? And the show wastes no time giving him that door. It just happens to look like an old RV in the middle of the desert. The diagnosis. This is the moment Walter White gets his perfect alibi, and the show tells you that, not with dialogue first, but with silence. Think about it. In the doctor's office, when he hears the word cancer, the sound design just drops out. No comforting music, no dramatic sting, just that dull ringing and Walt staring into space. Skyler is asking questions, the doctor is talking treatment options, and Walt might as well be on another planet. That numb reaction isn't just shock. It's the exact second his life splits into two stories, the one everyone will believe, and the one he actually wants. Because what does he do next? He doesn't rush home and collapse into Skyler's arms. He withholds the news. He goes to sit in his car. He watches kids doing burnouts in the parking lot. He chooses control over vulnerability. That's an obvious red flag right away. A man who truly just wants support tells his family. A man who wants leverage sits on the information and decides how to use it. Here's the thing, cancer becomes a narrative permission slip. It lets Walt reframe almost any selfish desire as noble sacrifice. Want to disappear for hours and cook meth in an RV? It's for the family. Want to lie, scream, and hoard cash? Well, he's dying, so who are you to judge? If he dies, everything he does now can be written off as at the time, he was desperate. Built-in moral cover. And that hits way deeper when you look at his psychology. This is a guy who already feels robbed once by Gray Matter. He believes his genius got stolen and turned into someone else's billion-dollar empire. Now his own body turns on him, robbed twice. Hear me out. That double injustice doesn't make him humble. It makes him hungry. You can almost feel the equation forming in his head. The world took what I was owed. My body is taking the rest. So this time, I take back everything. Watch how fast he weaponizes the diagnosis. Skylar asks basic questions about his schedule. He shuts her down with, "It's my cancer, my decision." She wants him to see another doctor. He pulls the sympathy card and ends the conversation. Later, when she's suspicious about money and secrets, any pushback becomes an attack on a dying man. To be fair, the people around him buy it, because who wants to accuse the cancer patient? But still, another missed opportunity for anyone to actually force honesty. And that's the tragic trick. The one thing that might have changed his path, real, messy conversations about fear, about pride, gets blocked by the very illness that supposedly makes him honest. So here's the question you're left with. If the cancer never happened, do you honestly believe this version of Walt doesn't find another acceptable excuse to break bad? Or was this just the first mask he grabbed, before the Heisenberg face underneath started to stick? So if the cancer mask is already slipping, the first cook is where you see what's actually underneath. Not the provider, not the victim, the guy who's been starving for a hit of power, the RV in the desert, the underwear, the gun, this. On the surface, it plays like awkward comedy. A high school teacher stripped down to tighty-whities because he's protecting his clothes. But think about it. The second they start cooking, the awkwardness disappears. Walt walks Jesse through the procedure, corrects him, sets standards. The bumbling dad in the parking lot is gone. The professional chemist walks into the room, and it's instant. He's in his element. Measurements, temperatures, purity. He's not guessing, he's dictating. Jesse, the supposed criminal expert, suddenly looks like the student again. That role reversal is a massive red flag about what's really going on emotionally. Walt doesn't just tolerate being in charge here. He likes it. You can see it in how quickly his voice firms up, how he shuts Jesse down when he cuts corners. This isn't a man reluctantly doing a job. This is a man finally getting to be the smartest one in the room without anyone rolling their eyes. Then the chaos hits. Crazy 8, Emilio. The desert turns from lab to execution site in minutes. And watch Walt. Most people beg, freeze, completely shut down. He does math. He spots the chemicals, calculates the reaction, and pitches that gas mask demo like he's back in front of a class. It's sick, but it's also incredibly telling. Under the most extreme pressure of his life, he becomes more precise, not less. The improvised explosion isn't just a clever plot device. It's our first obvious clue about what danger does to him. He's terrified, sure, but he's also locked in, calm, decisive, almost exhilarated. When he's stumbling through the desert in that gas mask, gun in hand, he's not just a guy who survived. He's a guy who just proved to himself what he can do when nobody's around to keep him small. Then pattern interrupt. Cut to the shower. This should be the breakdown scene, right? The trauma, the shaking, the what have I done? To be fair, that's what Skylar expects when he steps out. But here's the thing, he doesn't collapse, he pounces. He grabs her with this sudden, aggressive sexuality we have literally never seen from him before. No chemo fatigue. No, I'm tired, honey. He is wired. Hear me out. That's not relief. That's adrenaline and ego and victory. The cook didn't just solve a money problem. It woke something up. A dormant part of him that feels big, dangerous, undeniable. Once a man who's felt small for decades tastes that, the idea that he'll later just walk away from it starts to sound pretty suspicious. And the next time he gets a chance to quit, you'll see exactly how impossible it's already become. The first exit shows up in a basement, and Walt walks right past it. The Crazy 8 situation is supposed to be his wake-up call. You've got this mild-mannered chemistry teacher with a drug dealer chained to a pole, scribbling on a legal pad like he's grading papers. The pros and cons list is hilarious and horrifying at the same time. Kill him versus let him go, like he's weighing extra credit. On the surface, it looks rational. It looks moral. He's trying to prove to himself that he's still a good man, carefully evaluating options. But here's the thing, that list is already a lie. The real decision got made the second he cooked in the RV, the second Emilio died. Walt's not asking, should I kill? He's asking, can I find enough clues to convince myself I have to? Watch how the basement scenes shift. At first, Walt is terrified, apologetic, bringing Crazy 8 sandwiches, sharing personal details about his life. He even uncuffs him to let him use the bathroom. It feels like mercy. It feels like maybe he's going to choose the right thing. You, as a first-time viewer, might honestly think, Maybe he lets this guy go and walks away from the game. Then the plate breaks. He sweeps it up, throws it out, walks up the stairs. And something doesn't sit right. Think about it. This is a chemistry teacher. His brain is literally trained to notice missing pieces. He goes back, digs through the trash, and realizes a jagged shard is gone. That tiny missing triangle is the moment Heisenberg becomes inevitable. In an instant, his internal story flips. A second ago, he was the victim who made a bad choice and got in over his head. Now with that broken plate, he discovers Crazy 8's intent to kill him. It's this perfect psychological pivot. I'm not choosing murder. I'm defending myself. To be fair, Crazy 8 absolutely would have stabbed him. But Walt seizes on that fact like a lifeline. He strangles him with the bike lock, sobbing, apologizing, completely shattered. And the second it's done, he's trapped in a new way. This is the sunk cost kill. Once he's crossed that line, quitting isn't just walking away from a sketchy side hustle. If he stops now, he has to admit he killed a man for nothing. No empire, no nest egg, just a corpse in a basement and a shattered self-image. That's the part he cannot live with. Look at what happens right after. He vomits. He's physically rejecting what he's done. But almost immediately, he starts layering on the "for my family" story like concrete over a body. Hear me out. The deeper he goes, the more that story hardens. If he ever admits it wasn't really about them, then every death, starting with Crazy 8, becomes unforgivable. And even after all this, the universe hands him another off-ramp. Enough money, no DEA heat, a cleanish exit. The way Walt reacts to that offer is the clearest red flag yet that he's not actually looking for a way out. Because when that deal shows up, he doesn't hesitate, he gets angry. So let's talk about the moment Walter White actually wins. Because he does. Way earlier than you probably remember. And the way he reacts to that quiet victory is the first obvious clue that family stopped being the real finish line a long time ago. By the end of season 1, Walt has already made tens of thousands of dollars. That first deal with Tuco, they walk away with $35,000. Then more cooks, more drops. Conservatively, by early season 2, he's cleared into the low six figures. Not cartel money yet, but think about it in Walt's own terms. At the start, he tells Skylar the treatment will run them about $90,000. Add some cushion for the mortgage, basic living, a little security for the baby. He's basically there. The math is ugly, but it works. You see it physically during Skylar's baby shower and the early money-hiding scenes. The cash is not impressive by TV drug lord standards. It's a sad little stack in the air vent, some bundles in the diaper box. Visually, it almost looks underwhelming. But here's the thing. For Walter White, this is the first time in his life he's ever held that kind of cash that he earned on his own terms. Not from a paycheck, not from a boss, from him. Watch his face when he tucks it away. He's not just relieved, he's charged. There's this mix of fear and excitement that feels way too intense for just paying medical bills. It's the look of a guy who's finally seeing proof that the universe underestimated him. And that's exactly why, when Jesse starts talking about being done, Walt reacts like Jesse just insulted his existence. Jesse looks at the risk, the bodies, the near misses and says we've got enough, right? This is the rational moment. The off-ramp. To be fair, any normal person would slam on the brakes here. Walt doesn't. He bristles. He immediately starts moving the goalposts. Suddenly, it's not just treatment. It's college for both kids. It's future medical bills. It's real security, the kind where no possible disaster can ever touch them. Hear me out. That sounds responsible, but it's actually a brilliant little self-deception. Every time he gets close to his original target, he discovers a new, bigger, vaguer target. Enough becomes a horizon line. It's always out there, just a little further. Just one more cook, just one more drop, just one more score before he's really safe. But still, another missed opportunity to walk away clean. This is where the addiction logic kicks in. Walt's brain starts pairing the high of the cook, the power, the respect, the adrenaline, with a rational-sounding excuse, the money. Quitting doesn't just mean giving up cash. It means giving up the only place he feels powerful. So stopping starts to feel both less appealing and, somehow, less justifiable. On paper, he's already won. Emotionally, he's just getting started. And the deeper he goes, the more the money stops being the reason and starts being the alibi. And this is exactly where the money stops being the point and the costume starts doing the talking. The Tuco meeting, the junkyard, the pork pie hat. You know the scene. Walt walks in wearing that black jacket and that ridiculous, perfect little hat. And suddenly, he's not a high school teacher in over his head. He's performing, He's testing out a character in real time. Think about it. Up to this moment, Walt has mostly stumbled into danger. Naked in a supermarket, passed out in his classroom, panicking in an RV. But when he goes to Tuco with the fulminated mercury, he's not just desperate, he's rehearsed. He chooses the outfit, he chooses the attitude. He chooses to walk straight into a cartel psycho's lair and talk trash. He puts a single crystal on the table. Tuco laughs. It looks like a joke. Then Walt throws it. The explosion rips the windows apart, blows out cars, sends everyone diving for cover. And in the middle of the smoke, this calm little silhouette stands there, hat on, chest out. That's the birth of Heisenberg. It's not subtle. It's visually, almost comically obvious. Now, the name, Heisenberg. On paper, it's just a nerdy physics reference. But here's the thing. The real Heisenberg is famous for the uncertainty principle. You can't know a particle's exact position and momentum at the same time. The more certain you are about one, the less you know about the other. Walt basically weaponizes that idea as a personality. Heisenberg lets him exist in two moral states at once. To his family, he's Walter, meek, sick, doing it for them. To the streets, he's Heisenberg, ruthless, unpredictable, the guy who walks into Tuco's office and literally detonates chemistry on his desk. Anyone trying to pin him down gets that same uncertainty problem. Which version is real? Even Walt doesn't want to measure it too closely. Watch Tuco's reaction. This guy has beaten people half to death for fun. Suddenly he's scared. He's impressed. He's calling this middle-aged chemistry teacher Heisenberg with genuine respect. After a lifetime of being Mr. White, the butt of Hank's jokes, the guy students ignore, that hits like a drug. You can almost see Walt inhale it. And once the world starts treating Heisenberg with awe and terror, going back to Walter White isn't just hard, it's emotionally intolerable. Quitting wouldn't just mean leaving the business. It would mean killing the only version of himself that ever felt powerful, respected, untouchable. To be fair, that's a hard high to walk away from. But here's the twisted part. Right after Tuco, there actually is an off-ramp. Tuco is unstable. The situation is obviously a giant red flag. Walt could let the chaos consume Heisenberg, blame it on a bad choice, and retreat back into his family man life. He doesn't. He doubles down. And the way he chooses to handle Tuco next is the clearest clue yet that Heisenberg isn't a mask anymore. He's the one driving. We'll get to that escalation and why walking away becomes less and less of a real option in the very next turn. The Tuco spiral. This is where I had no choice quietly turns into I kind of like having no choice. And once you see that shift, you can't unsee it. The kidnapping. Walt and Jesse in the desert with Tuco dragged to that grim little shack by the border. Tuco's wired, paranoid, waving an assault rifles around while his uncle silently rings a bell in the corner. At any normal risk level, this is your game over screen. You get abducted by a cartel-adjacent maniac who might kill you for coughing too loud. You walk away and never touch meth again. But here's the thing. Walt doesn't walk away. Not really. Think about it. Tuco's death should be the perfect eject button. The immediate threat is gone. The only person who directly knows Heisenberg on the street level is out of the picture. The DEA is busy trying to figure out who killed a cartel guy in the desert. If Walt wanted a clean narrative, he has it. One bad decision, one insane partner, it all blew up. He was scared straight by the violence. You can easily imagine the story he could sell. Desperate cancer patient, first-time cook, terrified by how fast it got out of hand. To be fair, even Skyler might have eventually believed a watered-down version of that if he'd come clean right there. The universe is basically handing him a plea deal. Instead, watch what he actually does. He doesn't erase Heisenberg. He lets Heisenberg grow. Back in town, Walt leans into the myth. The blue meth keeps circulating. People keep whispering about this mysterious chemist with the high-end product. And Walt never really tries to kill that rumor. He starts to enjoy that there's a name out there that people fear, a legend that makes violent men nervous. The fear around Heisenberg becomes a kind of armor, not a warning sign. This is the pattern. Every time he survives, it doesn't humble him. It upgrades him. Surviving Tuco doesn't make him think, I almost died, I need to stop. It makes him think, I almost died and I handled it. Hear me out. The desert cabin isn't just a trauma, it's a proof of concept. He can outthink a psychopath, poison him, and walk away. That's intoxicating. Notice how each near-death experience tightens the knot instead of loosening it. The RV in the desert. The showdown with Tuco. Later, planes literally collide over his city and he still reads survival as a sign he's meant for this. But still, another missed opportunity to exit clean. And that's the chilling clue about Walt's psychology. What you and I would read as "this is your sign to stop," he reads as cosmic validation. The cancer didn't trap him in the game, the danger did. The Tuco spiral is just the first time the universe screams, "Get out." And he answers, "Guess I'm built for this." And once he believes that, the next escalation doesn't feel like a choice at all. It feels like destiny. The next partners he picks only make that delusion stronger. The second cell phone. This is where destiny starts to look a lot like paperwork. Think about it. Up to this point, Walt can still pretend he's just a desperate dad with bad luck and worse timing. But the minute Skylar smells that second phone, his life stops being about cooking and starts being about writing, constantly, on the fly. For an audience of one, Skylar's suspicion doesn't come out of nowhere. She catches him zoning out, disappearing, giving those vague, "I was just out" answers. Then she hits him with it. "Do you have a second cell phone?" And watch his face. He doesn't just say no. He stalls, he over-explains. He gives this oddly detailed story about misplacing his regular phone, about chemo brain, about how she must have misheard him. That's the clue. A normal lie would shut the topic down. Walt's lie makes the topic bigger. He has to keep adding patches, because every time Skylar tugs on one thread, the whole thing starts to unravel. The more she asks, the more elaborate the story gets. At the time, you can almost miss how obvious it is that he's building a second life in real time. Here's the thing about a double life. It's not just about where you are, it's about who you are in each place. Husband, Kingpin, Mr. White, Heisenberg. To be fair, lots of characters in crime stories juggle that. But Walt is different because he starts to enjoy the juggling itself. Every excuse is a little performance. Every cover story is a chance to prove he's smarter than the people around him. Hear me out. By the time we get to the hospital after his fugue state, Walt isn't just lying to protect himself, he's maintaining continuity. Skylar corners him, desperate, asking what's really going on, and he panics. What slips out? The second cell phone. Not the cancer, not the money, the lie. It's fused so tightly to his identity that it's the first thing his brain grabs when it's under stress. That's when you see the cost of quitting. Walking away now wouldn't just mean less cash. It would mean narrative collapse. To stop, he either has to confess everything or commit to this permanent, unresolved mystery about who he was during this whole period. Either option threatens the persona he's built. The mild, harmless Walter White can't survive next to the guy who disappears for days and owns a burner, so he doubles down. He has to. Every day he keeps cooking, the story he's told Skylar becomes harder to unwind. Every day he keeps being Heisenberg, it's more evident that the family man act is just that. An act he's now weirdly protective of. And just when you think, okay, if someone handed this guy a clean, legal way to solve his money problem, he'd finally stop, the universe does exactly that. A buyout, a lifeline, a way to walk away with his pride intact. But still, another missed opportunity. Because when that offer lands in his lap, you see what he really can't give up. And it's not the cash, the car wash buyout. This is one of the clearest "he could have stopped here" moments in the entire show. And it doesn't involve a gun, a cartel, or a lab. It's fluorescent lights, ugly tiles, and a guy with giant eyebrows. Bogdan calls Walt into the office, the desk, the framed certificates, the same place where Walt used to be humiliated, begging for extra hours to cover medical bills. But now the power dynamic is flipped. Bogdan wants out. He offers to buy Walt's share back with a decent severance, a clean check, legal money, a way for Walt to support his family without ever touching a barrel again. On paper, this is the dream. The cancer's in remission. The mortgage is covered. The kids are safe. Skylar can stop cooking the books. If Walt's story were really just "I did a bad thing for a noble reason," this is the exit ramp with a big neon sign. Take the buyout, walk away, live. But here's the thing. Walt doesn't even hesitate. He's offended. Immediately, you see it in his face, the jaw clench, the way his voice goes cold. Bogdan thinks he's doing him a favor, but to Walt, this is an insult, a downgrade, a reminder of his old place in the hierarchy. He doesn't hear, "Here's some money." He hears, "You're still the guy who works for me." Think about it. If his only metric was financial stability, this offer is a no-brainer. Take the severance. Keep the house, stop risking prison or a bullet to the head. Instead, he refuses a deal that actually makes his life safer and his family's future more secure. That's not rational. That's not for the family. That's ego doing donuts in the parking lot. And this is where the gray matter wound comes roaring back. Bogdan's offer is basically a low-stakes replay of Walt selling his stake in gray matter for cheap. Back then he walked away, took the buyout, and watched someone else build the empire off his work. At the time, it was just a decision. In his mind now, it's a lifelong humiliation. So accepting Bogdan's money? That would feel like telling the same story again. I built something, then I let someone else own it. Hear me out. The car wash isn't just a business to Walt. It's a symbol that he can finally be the one who buys in low and wins big. To sell now would be admitting he's still the guy who misses the obvious play. Skylar, of course, sees the offer as a blessing. She's thrilled. Less risk, less laundering, a normal life inching back into view. To be fair, from any sane perspective, she's right. But Walt doesn't live in sane perspective anymore. He lives on an internal scoreboard where security doesn't matter unless it comes with dominance. That split is the clue. Same offer, two completely different reactions. Skylar hears safety, Walt hears surrender, and once he chooses pride over peace here, you really have to ask, does any future "I did it for my family" excuse hold up after this? Because from this point on, every time he says he's out, you can track it back to this moment and see the lie starting to show. And the show doesn't let you forget it. Because the next time Walt gets a chance to walk away, the stakes are way higher, and his answer is even darker. So when the show says, okay, here's his next chance to walk away, it doesn't give him some sketchy back alley deal. It gives him Gus Fring, Gus's offer. On paper, it's perfect. 3 months of work, 7 figures. A professional operation, clean and structured, miles away from Tuco's psychotic coin flips and Crazy 8 in a basement. No street corners, no random gunmen, just a quiet super lab and a silent partner who handles the danger. Think about it. For a guy who keeps insisting, I'm just doing this for my family, I'll get in, make the money, and get out. This is literally the dream scenario. Limited time frame, clear boundaries. No more cooking in an RV that smells like death parked in the desert. If Walter White truly wanted a one-done score, this is the safest, most obvious exit ramp he will ever see. But here's the thing. Watch how he reacts. He doesn't look relieved. He looks intrigued, flattered. Gus sits across from him and basically says, your product is the best I've ever seen. You're a genius. I will build an empire around what only you can do. That's not just a job offer. That's an ego massage with a signing bonus. To be fair, Walt pretends to hesitate. He brings up the danger, the risk to his family, the usual script. But still another missed opportunity to actually stop. Because underneath that fake reluctance, you can see the thrill. This isn't Tuco screaming in his face. This is a calm, hyper-competent businessman treating Walt like a rare asset instead of a desperate cancer patient. And the lab itself is part of the seduction. Gus doesn't just hand him cash. He gives him a gleaming underground cathedral to chemistry. Stainless steel, state-of-art equipment, everything labeled and organized. It's like someone looked into Walt's soul and said, what if your high school classroom was actually worthy of you? How is he supposed to walk away from that after 3 months? Really? Then watch how fast he starts pushing the boundaries. The deal is simple. Walt cooks, Gus handles everything else. No Jesse, no drama. Yet Walt immediately insists on bringing Jesse back in, even after Jesse's addiction and chaos already almost got them both killed. That's not about necessity. That's about control and loyalty on his terms. He meddles with distribution, challenges Gus's timetable, questions decisions that aren't his to make. The structure that should have made this safe becomes a cage he wants to break. Because the truth is, Walt doesn't just want a paycheck. He wants to be the one calling the shots, the man at the center of the web. And once he finally steps fully into that super lab, coat on, mask down, surrounded by millions of dollars of equipment built just for him. Going back to grading papers in a beige classroom stops being a realistic option and starts sounding like a bad joke. The real question is, what does a man do once the lab stops being a job and starts feeling like the only place? He's truly alive? The super lab. This is where that feeling of being alive gets a physical address. Watch his first entrance. The camera doesn't just show you a room, it glides, almost floats, through this underground cathedral of stainless steel. Vats, gleaming columns, perfect symmetry. Walt walks in small, but the space treats him like he's entering a sanctuary. He runs his hand along the metal, checks every valve, every surface with this almost reverent touch. He's not casing a crime scene, he's admiring a masterpiece he's about to conduct. Now, compare that to his high school classroom. Cramped benches, peeling posters, buzzing fluorescent lights that make everyone look half dead. Students slumped over, texting, doodling, barely pretending to care while he explains world-class chemistry with dollar store equipment. At the time, that room is basically a daily insult. The message is obvious. Your talent doesn't matter here. In the Superlab, the message flips. This space says, "Your chemistry is art, and you are the artist." Gus literally builds a multi-million-dollar monument to one man's skill. Think about it. No more begging teenagers to put their phones away. No more budget cuts. Down here, every knob, every hood, every polished surface is a vote of confidence in Walt's genius, and it's feeding both sides of him. On one side, you've got the scientist who wants purity, precision, perfection. 99.1%, then higher, then higher. On the other, you've got the kingpin forming in the shadows, the guy who wants an empire that feels worthy of that purity. The Superlab is the one place those two people don't have to fight. They can finally shake hands. Here's the thing. Once you give someone that fusion of purpose and power, stopping stops being a real option. Walking away wouldn't just mean quitting a dangerous job. It would mean abandoning the only lab that has ever treated him like Heisenberg, instead of Mr. White. To be fair, the money is part of it. But the real high is that for the first time since gray matter, his brilliance is fully recognized, funded and feared. Pattern interrupt. Forget Walt for a second. Imagine you step into your dream workspace, every tool you ever wanted, unlimited budget, total creative control. And on top of that, people who once dismissed you now orbit your decisions. Would you honestly walk away from that, even if the foundation was dark? Even if every paycheck was a red flag? Hear me out. This is the psychological lock. The Superlab turns crime into calling, ego into obligation. From this point on, when Walt says he's out, you can already see the lie. Because what he'd really be leaving behind isn't just meth. It's the cathedral that finally made him feel like a god. And once you see that, every later choice to stay in the game starts to look a lot less like a tragic slip, and a lot more like exactly what he wanted. But that cathedral doesn't stay empty for long. Because what's a god without worshippers? And this is where the perfect cook trap really tightens around Walt's neck. Enter Gale Boetticher. On paper, he is Walter White's dream lab partner. Polite, hyper-competent, loves chemistry for chemistry's sake. He quotes Whitman brews coffee with a lab-grade setup and looks at Walt like he's meeting Einstein in a yellow hazmat suit. Think about it. Gale is the first person in the game who treats Walt exactly the way Walt's ego has always wanted to be treated. But here's the thing. That's also exactly why Gale is a problem. Gus doesn't bring in some random assistant. He brings in a gifted chemist who can learn, who can replicate, who can, with enough time, make Walt optional. And for a guy who just built a cathedral to his own genius, optional is the real terminal diagnosis. Watch how fast the vibe shifts once Walt realizes this. At the time, Gale is all admiration and respect, asking detailed questions, taking notes like a perfect student. On the surface, it's flattering. Underneath, it's a giant red flag, because every question Gale asks is also a clue. Gus is quietly downloading Heisenberg into a more obedient hard drive. To be fair, if Walt really wanted out, Gale is the solution. You train him, you walk away. Your family is covered, the cook continues, and your hands are off the glassware. It's the clean exit he keeps claiming to want. But still, another missed opportunity. Because Walt doesn't just want the money, he wants to be irreplaceable. So when Gus swaps Gale in and pushes Jesse out, Walt panics. Not because Jesse is in danger, that's almost secondary. He panics because his uniqueness is in danger. Hear me out. In that moment, Gus is saying, I don't actually need you. I can rebuild this empire without the man who built the cathedral. And Walt cannot live with that. That's why he drags Jesse back in. Not the polite, stable, scientifically gifted partner who loves him. The chaotic, traumatized, relapsing former student who resents him. On a purely rational level, this is insane. But Walt isn't optimizing for safety. He's optimizing for control. With Jesse, Walt is the teacher again, the savior, the only thing standing between Jesse and total collapse. Gale might adore Walt, but he doesn't need him in the same desperate, tangled way. And that's the trap. By choosing Jesse over Gale, Walt forges a bond that is half responsibility, half dependency. He needs Jesse as a tool, but he also knows every awful thing that happens to this kid is now tied to his choices. Quitting now wouldn't just mean giving up the lab. It would mean abandoning Jesse to consequences Walt set in motion. And when the Gale problem finally comes to a head, Walt shows you exactly how far he'll go to avoid being replaced. He doesn't accept the perfect solution. He points Jesse at it like a weapon. The moment Gale opens that apartment door, Walt proves it. He would rather destroy the perfect partner, the perfect exit ramp, than face a world where Heisenberg isn't needed anymore. Killing Gale. This is the moment where Walt doesn't just refuse the exit ramp. he blows it up with someone standing on it. Think about it. Gus has the perfect cook now. Gale is trained, loyal, and from Gus's perspective, a lot less suspicious than the high school teacher, who keeps bringing drama into the lab. Walt figures this out in seconds. The second he's driven out to the desert and realizes he's about to be killed, his brain doesn't go to confession or apology. It goes to strategy. He stalls for time. He begs to call Jesse. But here's the thing. That call isn't about saying goodbye. It's a hit order. Walt weaponizes the one person still loyal to him and sends him straight to Gale's apartment with a gun. The goal is simple and chilling. If Gale dies, Gus has no one else who can cook that purity. No Gale, no replacement. No replacement. No way to kill Walt without destroying the business. This is not self-defense in the usual sense. Walt isn't fighting someone actively attacking him in that moment. He is preemptively destroying the backup plan. He's engineering a reality where his survival is chained to the continuation of the meth operation. To be fair, he is under real threat, but the specific choice he makes? That's not just live or die. That's live only if the Empire lives with me. Watch how calculated it is. He doesn't say hide. He says you have to do it. He turns Jesse into the trigger that locks Gus in. Once Gale is gone, it becomes obvious. If Gus wants his product, he has to keep Walt breathing. Walt has turned his own irreplaceability into a hostage situation, and then you get the emotional fallout. Jesse stands in that doorway, hand shaking, eyes wide, utterly broken. The show holds on his face because the trauma is the point. Walt hears the gunshot over the phone, and you can almost feel him exhale in relief. Not horror, relief. The next time we see him, he's already rewriting the story. We had no choice. Hear me out. That line becomes his favorite magic trick. Every time he picks the most extreme, most nuclear option, he frames it as inevitable. Poisoning a child? No choice. Blowing up a nursing home? No choice. Killing Gale to keep his job? Just another missed opportunity in Walt's mind. To admit he actually wanted to stay in the game. So now the question hangs over every scene after Gale's murder. After orchestrating a killing to protect his position, are we really supposed to believe this is a man who plans to quietly retire once he hits some imaginary number? Or is this the moment Heisenberg decides there's no version of his life where he walks away at all? The I'm out lie. This is where Walt basically becomes his own unreliable narrator. He keeps saying the story is over, even as he's already writing the next chapter. Think about it. End of season 1, after the RV cook and the first big stack of cash in the diaper box, Walt tells Skylar it's temporary, just enough to cover treatment and a little cushion. He's literally hit his initial number by early season 2. But here's the thing. Instead of stopping, he's chasing Tuco through the desert and blowing up drug dealers with fulminated mercury. That's not a retirement plan. That's escalation. After near-death experiences, the pattern gets even more obvious. Post-Tuco, post being stranded in the RV with the generator failing, Walt comes home and does the whole broken, shaking family man routine. He promises it's under control. Then almost immediately, he's pushing Jesse back into the business, cooking in the RV again, acting like the universe just forced him to keep going. Then you get the big I'm out, after Skylar confronts him in season 3. She's found the second phone, the lies, the red flag behavior. Walt finally says he's done. He even moves out. At the time, it feels like a line in the sand. But still another missed opportunity. Within episodes, he's in the super lab with Gus, signing up for the most high-risk, high-reward version of the exact thing he supposedly just quit. Watch how he talks to people. With Skylar, it's always timelines. 3 months, 1 year, just until the baby is safe. With Jesse, it's one more cook, one last run. After this, we're set. That language is classic addiction rhetoric. The promise is always specific enough to sound reasonable, but always far enough away that you never actually have to cash it in. To be fair, Walt probably believes it in the moment. These declarations are self-soothing. He needs the idea that he could walk away any time, because admitting he doesn't want to is too honest, too ugly, so he builds this script where every relapse is actually a noble sacrifice, every new scheme just one final compromise. And each time, the follow-up move gets bigger and darker. I'm out after Gus, cut to. Building his own empire, new partners, wider territory, more bodies. I'm out after the pile of money in the storage unit, cut to. The Aryan gang, the train heist, the kind of violence Heisenberg only dreamed about in season 1. The gap between words and actions keeps widening until it's almost comical. Pattern interrupt for you. At what point do you stop believing him? Is it the car wash speech, the storage unit scene, the we're done when I say we're done moment? Or did you clock the lie way earlier? Hear me out, because this matters for what comes next. Once you realize every "I'm out" is actually a setup for a bigger play, you have to start asking whether Walt ever intended to stop at all, or if the exits plan was just another part of the performance. So once you see every "I'm out" as a setup, you have to go to the scene where that mask completely slips. The "I am the one who knocks" moment, the bedroom, the argument, the speech. At the time, Skylar is terrified because she thinks Walt is in danger from some mysterious drug kingpin. That's the story she's built to make all the suspicious behavior make sense. Late nights, missing money, the second cell phone. To be fair, it's already evident she doesn't buy the innocent chemistry teacher act anymore. Then Walt flips it, hard. He stands there in his tidy wetties and robe, but listen to the words. He reframes himself from possible victim to active predator in his own home. A man opens his door and gets shot and you think that of me? No, I am the one who knocks. Think about it. Skylar was asking, "Are we safe?" Walt answers, "I'm the danger." That's not reassurance. That's a confession wrapped in a power trip. This should be the breaking point. Skylar now has the core clue. Her husband isn't just lying, he's proud of what he's become. The marriage is basically shattered on the spot. She's sleeping with Ted. She's already talked to a divorce lawyer. She's literally afraid of him. Walt has a clear fork in the road here. He can surrender, admit what he's done, beg for forgiveness, or he can double down. He doubles down, and that choice exposes his real priorities more than any cancer speech ever could. He'd rather be feared and alone than humble and forgiven. The way he leans into the monologue, the way he enjoys watching her recoil, it's obvious this is giving him something regular life never did. Respect, control, the feeling that he matters when he walks into a room. Now watch what happens next with that in mind. Skylar doesn't turn him in. She doesn't run, she negotiates. She probes the money, the danger, the logistics. And when she finally agrees to help launder through the car wash, Walt gets the most dangerous gift possible, moral cover. Because now he can say, "We're in this together." The operation isn't something he's doing to his family anymore. It's something he can pretend he's doing with them. But here's the thing, that's just a new costume for the same ego. Skylar's involvement becomes another missed opportunity to stop, another moment where he could have taken the out and instead treats it like validation. Hear me out. The car wash purchase is the cleanest exit ramp he ever gets. Legitimate business, plausible income, a way to park the cash and actually retire. On paper, it's perfect. In practice, he uses it to legitimize the Heisenberg empire, not replace it. The blue meth keeps flowing, the lies get bigger, and the family business is just a front for the only identity he really cares about. And once the front looks that respectable, walking away becomes even harder to justify. To Skylar, to the world, and especially to himself, the car wash. This is where the exit ramp looks the most convincing. A respectable business, a clean front, and the perfect story to explain why the White family suddenly isn't broke anymore. And fittingly, it starts with a humiliation. Bogdan's car wash is the place where Walt used to scrub cars for his own students, under a boss who treated him like he was disposable. Remember that first episode image of Walt in his underwear and apron, washing cars after teaching chemistry? That's the life he's supposedly trying to escape. So when Skylar spots the car wash as a solution, it's not just practical, it's poetic revenge. The negotiation scenes are where you really see it. Skylar and Walt sit across from Bogdan, and suddenly the meek chemistry teacher and the overwhelmed housewife are running a con. They lowball him, they poke at the numbers, they stage that fake EPA contamination scenario to tank his buyer pool. Bogdan, who once lorded his framed first dollar over Walt, gets outmaneuvered by the people he used to look down on. On the surface, it's satisfying, it feels like a win. But here's the thing, on paper, this could be the end game. A legitimate business with steady income, a plausible reason for extra cash, and a way for Walt to say, "I did it, I provided." If he really wanted to stop, this is the moment where the meth money quietly disappears into a boring, normal life. Except they don't treat it like a replacement. They treat it like infrastructure. From the second they take over, Skylar is talking about bogus receipts and cash-heavy businesses, and Walt is nodding along. The car wash doesn't free them from meth. It chains their future to it. Think about it. Every dollar that flows through those registers is now part of the Heisenberg pipeline. Their family business literally cannot function without the drug money it's designed to sanitize. And then you get the framed dollar. Bogdan's little symbol of pride, the story of his immigrant grind, the proof that he built something from nothing. Walt takes it down, He pockets it. He replaces it with his own bill. It's such a small, obvious visual, but it's a massive clue. Walt isn't just buying safety. He's rewriting the narrative of who he is. In his mind, he's no longer the guy who got bossed around. He's the guy who wins in the end. To be fair, you could argue this is still about security, but listen to the way he savors it, the way he can't resist that petty victory. Hear me out. If he truly wanted out, why does every new legitimate opportunity get repurposed as a way to stay in the game? The car wash isn't his off-ramp, it's his headquarters. And once you see that, the next opportunity he's offered becomes even darker. And once you see that, the next opportunity he's offered becomes even darker. The Fly. The bottle episode everyone jokes about, but think about it. This is the one time Walter basically tells you the truth about himself. We're locked in the super lab. No cartel shootouts, no family drama, just Walt and Jesse and a single fly that Walt decides is the end of the world. He shuts the cook down. He refuses to start until that one tiny contaminant is gone. On paper, it's about purity. In practice, it's about control, total control. Walt is exhausted, wired, clearly not okay, and he turns this insect into a full-blown crisis. He climbs railings, risks falling to his death, burns time and money over something that, to be fair, any normal boss would just swat and move on from. But here's the thing, the fly is not the problem. The fly is the excuse. Late at night, after pills, after rambling, he finally stops chasing it and starts talking. This is where the episode quietly flips from comedy to confession. Walt starts listing moments from his past, almost like he's scrolling through save points in a video game. The night of the family video. The good news about his cancer. The point where Skylar was pregnant, the kids were laughing, and the money problem wasn't yet a monster. And then he lands on it. The perfect moment. The exact time when, in his mind, he should have died. He tells Jesse that if he had gone then, everything would stayed intact. No Jane. No plane crash. No cartel war. No broken son watching his dad become a stranger. It's not subtle. Walt is admitting out loud that the story already passed its ideal ending. He knows he missed his exit. Hear me out. That's not just guilt talking. That's awareness. He understands that at the time he kept going, every new cook, every new lie, was already beyond what stopping could fix. You can't undo Jane's death. You can't uncrash two planes. You can't unteach yourself that you like being Heisenberg. And remember what that confession is wrapped around, the fly. His obsession with catching it mirrors his obsession with scrubbing his life of randomness, no contamination, no uncertainty, no loose ends. The universe drops a chaotic, ugly little reminder into his pristine lab, and Walt reacts the same way he reacts to cancer, to Gus, to Hank. He tries to dominate it into submission. That's the real red flag. He doesn't just want to survive, he wants authorship. Over his life, his legacy, his story, even his death. Admitting he missed the perfect death doesn't make him stop. It just makes him angry that he didn't get to choose it. So if he knows the best ending is gone, why keep playing? Why push deeper into the chaos he says he regrets? Because the next phase isn't about survival at all. It's about building something so big, so undeniable, that even a missed perfect death won't matter. And that's where the Empire talk starts. The Empire talk. This is where the mask finally slips. We're in Saul's office. Jesse and Saul are basically handing Walt his exit strategy on a silver platter. Sell the blue formula, take a cut, walk away rich. Simple, clean. The exact kind of "I did this for my family" ending he pretends to want. And Walt just stares at them and says it. I'm in the Empire business. Think about it. That line is a confession. He's not talking about paying for Junior's college or leaving a safety net anymore. He's talking like a CEO who just realized he doesn't want a buyout, he wants a monopoly. At the time, it almost sounds like a cool villain quote, but if you track everything that comes before it, it's the moment he stops even pretending this is short-term. Here's the thing. The scene is framed like an intervention. Saul is the practical criminal. Jesse is the exhausted partner who actually would be fine with enough. They're both waving giant red flags at him. You're rich, you're alive. People much scarier than you are dead. Take the win. And Walt treats it like an insult. He talks about Gus, about how Gus built something, about how Gus underestimated him. It's not fear in his voice. It's professional jealousy. Gus, Mike, the cartel, even Lydia later on, listen to the way he describes them. These aren't predators he needs to escape. They're rivals he needs to outmaneuver. Being underestimated was a shield before. Now it's an ego wound he's trying to fix. Pattern interrupt for a second. Pause that scene in your head. Now mentally cut to Season 1 Walt in the classroom. Beige jacket, soft voice. He's erasing a whiteboard and getting mocked by students about his old car. That guy is calculating how to survive cancer. Empire Walt is sitting in Saul's office, arms crossed, casually rejecting millions because it doesn't come with a crown. Same man, same brain, totally different target. Empire building changes the math. An empire is not about a number in a bank account. By definition, there is no enough. There's only more territory, more power, more control. So once Walt says he's in the empire business, he's admitting he's chosen a game that never actually ends. Walking away stops being a financial decision and becomes a loss of identity. And to be fair, the show has been dropping clues that he was headed here. The exhilarated shower scene after his first cook, the way he rejects the car wash buyout that would solve his money problem, the fact that he keeps pushing even when he has more cash than he can launder. But still, another missed opportunity for him to stop. So when he says empire, what he's really saying is, I like this. I'm good at this. I'm not done. The Family Man is now the cover story. Heisenberg is the real job title. The question is, once your identity is the empire, what happens when anyone tries to take even a piece of it away? The storage unit. This is where the fantasy of I'm doing it for my family finally runs out of room. Skylar drives Walt to that anonymous metal door, slides it open, and you're hit with it the same way he is. Just this impossible, absurd mountain of cash, stacked on pallets wrapped in plastic, spilling over like the world's most illegal Costco display. It's not a nest egg anymore, it's a landscape. And Skylar, who has been living with this thing, just quietly drops the most important line in the scene. She says she can't count it. She doesn't know how much it is. She can't launder it fast enough. Think about it. The entire original goal was a number, a specific amount for treatment, for the mortgage, for the kid's future. Now the person actually handling the money is saying, the number doesn't exist anymore. That's your red flag that the stated mission is over. Any rational financial objective is gone. This is not college funds. This is not retirement. This is a dragon horde. Watch Walt's face. First, real shock. He's actually taken aback, like he didn't fully believe his own success until he sees it's physically occupying an entire room. Then it settles into this quiet, almost serene satisfaction. He doesn't rush to say, we're done. He doesn't even hug her. He asks very carefully, is this enough? That question is the clue. Because why does he need Skylar to say it? Why does the guy who has bulldozed every decision suddenly act like he needs permission to stop? Here's the thing, he's stalling. On the surface, it sounds responsible, like he's finally letting her call the shots. Underneath, it's him outsourcing the choice he doesn't actually want to make. To be fair, at the time you can read it as fear. Fear of leaving his family exposed, fear of medical bills coming back. But the show makes it pretty evident that the money has stopped being a tool and become a monument. It's a physical scoreboard of his power. Every brick is a reminder that Heisenberg beat the system, outsmarted everyone, built an empire from nothing. And Skylar sees it. That's why she looks horrified instead of impressed. She understands this isn't security, it's a confession. This pile says, you didn't stop when you could have. So when Walt stands there, half in awe, half in worship, you're not watching a provider admiring his hard work. You're watching an addict staring at his stash. The obvious financial exit ramp is right in front of him, and somehow it still feels like another missed opportunity to walk away clean. If the money isn't the point anymore, then what is he really protecting now? And once your true prize is something you can't count, can't launder, and can't even say out loud, how far are you willing to go to keep it from being taken? If the prize isn't the money, you start looking at what he actually fights for. Territory, reputation, the map of where his blue meth goes, and the story people tell about the man who made it. Season 5 makes this obsession so obvious it's almost funny. He has more cash than he can count, but he's still planning set pieces like he's auditioning for Ocean's 11. The train heist. That is not a provide for my family move. That's a let's rob a moving train in broad daylight because I want to see if I can move. The train, the kid, the buried barrels. Think about it. Walt has options at this point: buy methylamine, scale down, or just stop. Instead, he engineers this insane operation to steal thousands of gallons for free, purely to keep his product flowing at maximum volume. It's about scale, about the rush of pulling off something so big and cinematic that it turns him into a legend in his own head. Same thing with the overseas methylamine deal. Mike and Jesse want to sell the stock and walk. Problem solved. But Walt hears that his formula could keep cooking in the Czech Republic without him. And he reacts like someone's trying to steal his soul. But here's the thing. The money on the table is more than he ever claimed to need. What he can't stand is the idea that his empire keeps expanding without his name attached. That's where Vamonos Pest comes in. On paper, it's just a front. In practice, it's Walt franchising Heisenberg. Every house tented is a satellite lab. Every fumigation truck is a moving billboard for his invisible territory. It's not necessity, it's infrastructure. He's building a network, not a nest egg. And whenever his name gets erased from that network, he loses it. He's furious that people think Gale was the genius. He seethes when his blue is on the street, but no one knows who made it. The whole say my name scene? That's not about negotiating leverage. That's about forcing the universe to acknowledge Heisenberg as an undeniable fact. You seize the pattern. Anytime someone else gets credit, or the legend gets blurry, Walt treats it like a personal attack. It's a huge red flag that this isn't just business, it's legacy. A twisted replacement for the family story he's already burned down. Hear me out. When he realizes he can't be remembered as a good husband and father, he doesn't stop. He just swaps goals. If the kids won't get a heroic cancer story, they'll inherit a myth about a kingpin genius who built an empire from nothing. To be fair, that story is also a lie, but it's the only one that still makes him feel big. And a man chasing territory and legend like that? That's not someone quietly planning retirement. Someone who needs a different kind of ending entirely. One will see him start engineering the moment his illusion of control gets threatened. So what happens when that different kind of ending suddenly gets taken off the table? The remission. This is one of the biggest red flags about Walter's true motives, and it's hiding in plain sight. Think about it. The entire story he's been selling, to his family and to himself, is built on a ticking clock. I'm dying, I have to do this now. Then the doctor walks in, the appointment. Skylar is hopeful, Walt Jr. is nervous, and Walt is sitting there like a man bracing for a sentence. The scans look good, the tumors have shrunk. The doctor literally uses the word remission. Skylar cries with relief. The family is stunned in a good way. Walt looks lost, not grateful, not overjoyed. Just hollow and almost disappointed, like someone quietly moved the finish line he'd been running toward. Here's the thing. If the cancer was really the engine behind all of this, that scene should be his exit ramp. His primary stated justification just evaporated. He is no longer imminently dying. The I have to hurry and provide for my family logic is suddenly way less obvious, way less urgent. And what does he do with that? He doesn't slow down, he floors it. Right after remission, you don't see a man winding down an emergency plan. You see escalation, bigger cooks, bigger risks, bigger ego. He leans even harder into the business, into the Heisenberg identity he's been carefully building. The guy who was supposedly just trying to pay medical bills is now turning down perfectly legal money from the gray matter buyout and obsessing over territory, reputation, and purity. To be fair, the show never has him sit there and say, "Oh great, I'm better, now I can be a full-time drug lord." It's not that obvious on the surface. But if you watch his behavior, the clue is evident. Remission doesn't free him from the game, it frees him for the game. Because once the cancer pressure lifts, the mask should, in theory, become unnecessary. Instead, he tightens it. He keeps telling Skylar it's still about the kids, still about security, still about that noble sacrifice narrative. But here's the thing. He's already hit his financial goals more than once. The piles of cash are literally too big to launder. Medical bills stopped being the real math a long time ago. Remission forces him, at least subconsciously, to look at the one explanation he's been dodging. He's staying because he likes the power. He likes being the smartest, scariest man in the room. He likes that people know the name Heisenberg. He can't admit that yet. Not to Skylar, not to Hank, not even to himself. So he has to find a new story, a new excuse to keep going now that the original one doesn't work. And if the cancer isn't the reason anymore, what does he land on? What lie does he cling to until the very end, right up until that final, brutally honest confession where he finally says, "I did it for me"? We're not there yet. But every step from this remission scene onward is pushing him straight toward that line. From here on, the excuse is dead, but the empire is alive. And the people who feel that first aren't cartel bosses or rival dealers. It's his family. Skylar in the pool. That's the first huge red flag that Walt flat out refuses to read. She doesn't argue, she doesn't negotiate. She just walks straight into the deep end in front of everyone. At the time, you can read it as a breakdown, but think about it. That's a moral ultimatum without words. She's saying, living with what you're doing is worse than drowning. And what does Walt do? He panics in the moment, plays the concerned husband, does the hospital routine. Then he pivots right back into business mode. No real change, no exit plan. Just a new story about doing this for us, layered over the same suspicious behavior. It's temporary guilt, followed by a performative reset, followed by... Then you get that bedroom scene. Skylar, smoking, staring into nothing, and she says the quiet part out loud. Whatever it is, I'm afraid. That line is brutal because it's not about the meth, not specifically. It's about the person sleeping next to her. She's telling him directly, you are the danger now. You are what I'm scared of. Here's the thing. Walt hears this. You can see it land. But still, another missed opportunity. Instead of actually choosing them, he doubles down on controlling them. He moves the money, manipulates the narrative, tries to manage Skylar like another piece on his chessboard. The Empire doesn't pause. It just gets better at hiding. And then the mask completely drops in that kitchen argument, where Skylar says she's waiting for his cancer to come back. That is as clear as a moral ultimatum gets. She's saying, I would rather you die than keep doing this. No subtext, no ambiguity. If family was truly first, this is the moment where everything stops. But he doesn't stop. He gets wounded, offended, self-righteous. He acts like she's the one crossing a line. To be fair, it's a savage thing to say. But here's the thing. She's describing the reality he created. His response is all ego injury, zero accountability. Then we hit the storage unit scene. Skylar pulls back the tarp and shows him a literal mountain of cash. It's absurd. It's comedic. It's also the most obvious visual clue in the entire show that the for the family goal has been obliterated. They can't even count it. They can't spend it. They are drowning in success they never asked for. And even here, when she's basically begging him, please, can we be done? He doesn't instantly say yes. He has to be walked through it, convinced that the game has been won. And when he finally agrees, it feels like a pause, not a surrender. You feel that, right? It's like an asterisk saying, I'll cut back. Pattern interrupt. At this stage, do you see any version of Walter White honestly choosing his family over his pride if someone forced him to pick one? Hear me out. Every confrontation, every plea, every breakdown is a flashing red light. And every time he drives right through it, straight toward the next, even darker line he's about to cross. So when does the universe finally slam on the brakes for him? Hank's garage. That's the moment the mask actually cracks. And Walt still tries to rearrange the pieces instead of taking it off. It starts in the most mundane way possible. A family barbecue, a bathroom break. Hank sits down, picks up leaves of grass like it's nothing, and reads that inscription, to my other favorite WWGB. Now at the time, this is just a sweet callback for us, but watch Hank's face. You can see the gears turning very slowly at first, then all at once. He remembers Gail's lab notes, the WW joke, Walt's fake nervous laugh, his insistence that Gail couldn't be Heisenberg. Suddenly, all those coincidences he missed stop being cute and start looking like a pattern. The book drops. His hand shakes. The dawning horror is evident. His harmless, pants-losing brother-in-law might be the monster he's been chasing for years. Cut to the garage confrontation. The door closes. The tone of the entire show shifts. Hank doesn't play it cool. He explodes. He swings, he breaks Walt's glasses, he calls him out as Heisenberg. It's the anger of a cop, sure, but it's also the betrayal of a guy who just realized the family clown has been playing him. And Walt? First instinct is denial. You're wrong, you've got no proof. He leans on the same weak, wheezy persona that worked for so long. But here's the thing, Hank's finally past that. For once, the I'm just a sick chemistry teacher act doesn't land. So Walt pivots, fast. The mask doesn't come off, it just changes expression. He goes cold, calculated. He weaponizes his cancer, saying he'll be dead before any trial. He leans into the idea that exposing him will destroy the family, ruin Hank's career, nuke Marie's life. It's not a plea. It's a threat wrapped in concern. Think about it. This could have been the forced exit, the DEA closing in, the brother-in-law on the case, the cover story shattered by a single bathroom book. Any normal person hits the brakes here. But still, another missed opportunity by Walt himself. Instead of surrendering, he lawyers up with Saul, plants bugs, tracks Hank's moves, and starts gaming out every angle. Even when he's cornered in a literal garage with his crimes finally exposed, his instinct is to play chess, not confess. To be fair, he's really good at it, which is exactly the problem. From this point on, he's not protecting his life. He's protecting his legend. Hear me out. Once Hank knows, death becomes less scary to Walt than obscurity. So what does Heisenberg do when he realizes the Empire is collapsing, but his pride still demands a monument? That's where things get truly ugly. So when we hit Ozymandias, You're watching that monument get smashed in real time. The episode doesn't just knock Walt down, it shows you what he grabs for as everything falls. The desert. The first collapse happens out there. Hank is on his knees, Jack's crew has the guns, and Walt finally realizes his chessboard doesn't matter anymore. He begs, he bargains. He offers up the only thing he thinks still has power, $80 million buried in the ground. Think about it. This is the same guy who once said, "I'm in the empire business," now screaming, "You can have it all, just don't kill Hank." Here's the thing, it's too late. Walt is suddenly willing to trade his entire fortune, but only when the money can't actually fix what he's broken. At the time when Hank's life could have been saved, back when Walt could have chosen not to drag him into this world at all, Heisenberg was too proud, too stubborn, too obsessed with winning. By the time he's crying and promising Jack the coordinates, the outcome is already evident. Hank knows it, Jack knows it, we know it. Walt is the last one to accept that his money has finally stopped listening to him. Then the second collapse, the house. After Hank's death and the desert betrayal of Jesse, Walt stumbles home with one goal left, grab the cash and run, but Skylar blocks him with that kitchen knife. The fight that follows is brutal because it strips away his favorite lie. This is not a man protecting his family. This is a man trying to keep control of what's left of his story. When Walt tackles Skylar in front of Walt Jr., when the knife is swinging and the son he did it all for calls the police on him, the family fantasy is done. To be fair, you could argue he's panicking, not planning, but still, another missed opportunity to walk away instead of doubling down on domination. And then he does the unthinkable. He takes Holly. Kidnapping his own baby is not about safety, it's about possession. He can't keep his wife, can't keep his son, can't keep his brother-in-law alive, but he can still hold this one piece of the life he's losing. It's control in its purest, ugliest form. The phone call is the last collapse, and it's the most complicated. Walt calls Skylar knowing the police are listening, and he performs the monster. He leans into every worst version of himself, ranting about how she was too stupid, too weak, making it sound like she was always just a victim of his abuse. On the surface, it's one of his only truly self-sacrificial acts. He's trying to exonerate her by taking all the blame. But here's the thing, he's also directing his own final scene. He wants the official record to say he was the mastermind, the sole architect, the legendary Heisenberg. Hear me out, even as his empire turns to dust, he's still editing the narrative. The money is gone, the family is shattered, the empire is dead, but the story? That he can still try to control. And if you watch what he does next, after he disappears, you'll see that obsession with image and legacy hasn't burned away. It's just gone underground, waiting for one last act. So when that obsession finally goes underground, it takes him somewhere almost surreal. The cabin, the snow, the silence. New Hampshire isn't just a new location. It's like the show drops Walter White into witness protection for his own ego. You've got this tiny, creaking cabin buried in white, a wood stove, a stack of canned food, and one human contact. The fixer who shows up once a month with supplies, cash, and a bundle of newspapers like he's Santa for fugitives. Think about it. On paper, this is the retirement plan Walt's been selling since the pilot. Safe, anonymous, enough money in that blue barrel nearby to live out his days in quiet, miserable comfort. No cartels, no DEA. No more late-night barrel runs in the desert. Functionally, this is the I'm-out fantasy he kept dangling in front of Skylar and in front of himself. But here's the thing, the minute he actually gets it, he falls apart. Watch his routine, or really the lack of one. He paces. He shuffles in circles around the cabin. He plays cards with himself. He grows that scraggly beard that looks less like rugged mountain man and more like guy who lost a fight with a snowblower. The boredom isn't just background detail. It's the show underlining that without Heisenberg, Walter White has no idea who he is, and he still can't stop trying to control the story. He stuffs money into a box, pays the fixer extra to risk mailing it to Walter Jr. at school. It's a desperate move, and you can see the old pattern. He thinks one clever play can fix everything. But still, another missed opportunity. The box gets intercepted, the plan collapses, and the one thing he was supposedly doing all of this for rejects even the money. So what does he cling to instead? The TV. Those Heisenberg news stories become his new blue meth. Every month, he's begging the fixer to stay an extra hour just to talk, to hear how the legend is being reported. It's obvious how starved he is for any clue that his name still matters out there. Retirement is supposed to mean peace. For Walt, it just means withdrawal. Then comes the phone call to Walter Jr. Hear me out. This is the closest he ever comes to actually quitting. He calls expecting, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe some crack in the wall. Instead, he gets pure hatred. Junior tells him to die, to never send money again, to disappear. That's the moment where it finally becomes evident to Walt that the family man story is dead on arrival. And for a second, he almost accepts it. He shuffles back to the couch, curls up with his barrel like a tombstone, and waits to fade out. But then the TV gives him one last story, one name, one piece of news that flips the switch and proves that even here, at rock bottom in the snow, it's still his pride driving the car. It's the interview. The last thing he should be watching, and the only thing he can't look away from. Gretchen and Elliot, the people from the life he should have had. They're sitting on Charlie Rose's set, all soft lighting and polite smiles, talking about gray matter, talking about Walter White, except, not really. At first, it's subtle. They credit him as a brilliant young man, a former colleague, someone who contributed early on. Sounds respectful, right? But think about it. The way they phrase it, Walt isn't a founder. He's a footnote, a guy who was there at the time, then drifted off before the real success happened. The obvious implication is, gray matter became gray matter without him. You watch Walt's body react before his brain even catches up. He leans in. He shuffles closer to the screen like gravity just shifted. That hunched, defeated posture from a minute ago? Gone. His eyes narrow. His breathing changes. You can almost feel the room heating up around him, while the snow still buries the cabin outside. Here's the thing. This is the perfect collision of his two biggest obsessions. On one side, you've got the original wound, gray matter, the company he helped build, the one he walked away from, the billion-dollar regret that turned into a permanent scar. On the other side, you've got Heisenberg, the empire, the legend, the blue meth that shook the entire Southwest. And now, on national TV, Gretchen and Elliot are politely erasing both. They downplay his role, then go a step further. They deny that the Heisenberg they've heard about could ever be Walter White. To be fair, from their perspective, Walt is the guy who bailed, who settled into a high school job and a boring life. But still, another missed opportunity for anyone to actually see him clearly. They treat him like harmless background noise in their success story. That's the red flag that detonates his resignation. Because if there's one thing Walt cannot tolerate, it's being erased from his own story. Hear me out. He's already lost the money, the power, the family. But when they strip his name out of the narrative, when they make him small again, that's worse than death to him. You can see the switch flip in real time. The mission changes. This isn't "I have to send money to my kids" Walt. That guy died on the floor of the cabin. This is "You will say my name" Walt waking back up. The interview fuses gray matter humiliation with the Heisenberg myth and gives him one last, crystal clear purpose. Go back and rewrite the ending. He doesn't leave that cabin as a noble provider. He leaves as an author furious that someone else grabbed the pen. And this is the pattern interrupt the show slams in your face. It's not the cartel, not the DEA closing in, not even the mountain of cash that finally moves him. It's a TV segment poking his pride. That's the real engine. And once you see that, his final trip to Albuquerque looks a lot less like redemption, and a lot more like revenge on the story itself. So when he comes back, he doesn't come back as a man looking for forgiveness. He comes back as an author rewriting his own ending. And you see that from the very first move, the trunk, the machine gun. The rig in the Cadillac is Walt's brain on full display. Remote-controlled pivot, timed to the exact angle of the clubhouse, tested in the snow like some deranged science fair project. He's not improvising anymore, he's storyboarding. Every bullet is pre-assigned a target, every variable is calculated. It's the same chemistry teacher who used to lecture about stoichiometry, now doing ballistic math in a Denny's parking lot. Then the ricin, that tiny vial he's been carrying around like an unresolved subplot, finally gets its payoff. He fishes it out of the outlet, repackages it neatly into Lydia's beloved stevia packet. Think about it, he doesn't just shoot Lydia, or expose her, or ignore her. He chooses the most theatrical, ironic method possible. Her health-obsessed ritual becomes the delivery system for her death. That's not survival, that's staging. And that's the clue to this whole final day. Walt isn't trying to live, he's trying to direct. He lines up the Nazis, Lydia, Jack, Todd, even his own family, as if they're pieces on a board he gets to sweep in one grand gesture, tying up loose ends, punishing enemies, arranging the props. To be fair, some of them absolutely deserve it. But here's the thing, the meticulousness isn't about justice, it's about control. He wants the last chapter to read exactly how he thinks it should have gone all along. Now Gretchen and Elliot, the laser pointer scene is pure Heisenberg theater. He breaks into their mansion, compliments the decor, and then casually turns their entire world into a hostage situation with a flick of red dots on their chests. On paper, it's ridiculous. Two rich people terrorized by a couple of stoners outside with laser pens. But still, another missed opportunity for humility. Walt could have just asked. Instead, he scripts himself as the unseen mastermind, forcing them to launder his remaining money to Flynn under the guise of a trust fund. Hear me out. That scene is Walt's fantasy of how he always wanted people to see him. Not as the awkward teacher at the party, ignored at the gray matter table, but as the invisible hand that can snap and rearrange their entire future. Even his death is pre-programmed into the plan. He knows he's not walking away from that compound. He doesn't want to. The point is that the money lands, the Nazis die, Lydia drinks her tea, and his name never gets the credit. But his will shapes everything. He's dying, but he still can't stop directing the narrative. And all of that, every last calculation and riss-and-grain, is building toward one final conversation where, for once, he drops the script and actually tells the truth about why he never stopped. It all comes down to a phone call and a kitchen table. After seasons of lies, fake fights, and that infamous "I am the one who knocks" speech, Walt walks into Skylar's cramped little apartment in the finale and finally knocks on himself. The scene, the confession, you remember it. Skylar's smoking, the camera stays low, and Walt stands there like a ghost who hasn't realized he's dead yet. He starts with the same tired script. The money, the kids, the "I wanted to give you something." It sounds familiar, right? Then he finally says it. "I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it." Think about it. That one line detonates every "I did it for the family" he's ever thrown at us. All those speeches about leaving something behind, about cancer, about providing, retroactively exposed as a cover story, and not just for the characters, for you, for the audience that wanted to believe him. Every time he said "I'm out," it wasn't a solemn vow. It was a performance, a way to look noble while he waited for an excuse to jump back in. Because when you rewind with that line in your head, the clues are obvious. Season 1, First Cook. He comes home and practically attacks Skylar in the shower, buzzing with adrenaline. That's not a man traumatized by crime. That's a guy high on power. Season 3, Bogdan offers to sell him the car wash. Clean, legit, problem solved. Walt rejects it. Season 5, he has more money than he can launder, literally too much to count, and he's still pushing for more territory. But here's the thing. If he really wanted out, any one of those was his exit ramp. Skylar's reaction in that kitchen is brutal. She doesn't scream. She doesn't throw anything. She just closes her eyes for a second, like she's been waiting years for him to say the quiet part out loud. It's relief, because the lie is finally over. It's devastation, because the truth matches what she's already seen in his actions. The gambling story, the second phone, the missing nights, the way he smiled at that pile of cash in the storage unit. To be fair, Skylar's not surprised. She's just finally got confirmation that the man she thought was sacrificing himself for his family was really sacrificing his family for himself. And here's the cruel part. This confession doesn't fix anything. Holly doesn't get her father back. Hank doesn't crawl out of the desert. Jesse doesn't suddenly get untortured. But it does clarify the story. Walt could never stop because he never wanted to stop. The cancer, the money, the cartel, those were obstacles. The game was the point. So now that he's admitted it, you can look back and see every missed off-ramp. The perfect death he talks about in Fly. The moment he hit his money goal. The day he walked away from Gus's lab. Hear me out. We saw those exits too, and we still rooted for him to keep going. Why? And what does it say about us? Because next, we're going to walk through those big escape routes one by one and see how Walter White, and maybe the audience, chose to blow past every single red flag. So let's actually count them. Not in the abstract, not as vibes, but as literal exits. Because once you line them up, it stops feeling like tragedy and starts feeling like a pattern. First Cook. The RV in the desert, the gas mask, the underwear. At the time, it looks like a one-off midlife crisis with chemistry. A genuinely family-motivated Walt would see the horror of nearly dying, cash out the few $1,000s, and say, "Okay, that was insane, I'm done." Instead, he's in the shower afterward, grinning. He's exhilarated. Think about it. His first instinct isn't to confess or quit. It's to refine the process and do it better. Then Crazy 8. The basement, the bike lock, the legal pad pros and cons list. This is Walt staring directly at the cost of his choice. A scared dad would call the cops, beg for a deal, or at least walk away from the game after that first kill. Walt does kill him, and then uses that murder as the emotional fuel to keep going. I've already done this much, I can't stop now. That's not grief. That's sunk cost logic. After Tuco. The Desert Showdown, the fulminated Mercury, the near execution of Hank's informant. This is a huge red flag moment. Any normal person, after barely escaping a psychotic drug lord, taps out. To be fair, Walt does say he's out. But here's the thing. He doesn't go back to teaching in carpool. He gets pulled right back in the second the money dries up. Like the danger was a price of admission, not a deal breaker. Gus's initial offer, the super lab, the pristine equipment, the 3-month contract. Gus literally hands him a finite, structured way to solve the I need money for my family problem. A family man takes the deal, does the time, and walks away when the clock runs out. Walt? He takes the deal, then immediately starts pushing for more cooks, more control, more say in the operation. He's not just solving a crisis. He's building a career, the car wash. Once he buys it, the whole I need a front, I need to launder issue is solved. Skylar's in, the books are cooking, the cancer is in remission, and the storage unit is quietly filling with cash. A sane exit is obvious. Stop cooking, let the wash run, be the weird but harmless boss. Instead, when we hit the storage unit reveal, that mountain of money Skylar can't even count. Walt's reaction is pure offense. It's not we're safe, it's why you saying it's enough. He literally moves the goalposts in real time. And then the cabin, Ed's vacuum cleaner exile. No more empire, no more enemies, just time to die and maybe write a letter. This is the last, clearest off-ramp. A truly repentant Walt stays put, but still another missed opportunity. He sees Gretchen and Elliot on TV, feels his ego get stabbed, and walks out of witness protection to stage one final, operatic return. So if all these exits are so evident now, why did so many of us nod along every time he said, "I'm out, hear me out"? The answer isn't just about Walter, it's about how the show plays you, episode by episode, and what you were willing to ignore right along with him. The show doesn't just play Walter, it plays you. From episode 1, it quietly hands you a story that makes his worst decisions feel kind of reasonable. Think about it. The pilot stacks the deck so hard in his favor it's almost funny. He's coughing up blood, working 2 jobs, getting mocked by students, and watching Hank flex with the DEA while he can't even afford a proper birthday. At the time, every new humiliation is a clue the writers are giving you. This guy deserves a win. So when he says he's cooking meth for my family, your brain files it under noble sacrifice, not future war criminal. That's the power of the family man narrative. We're conditioned to treat "I'm doing it for them" as a moral get-out-of-jail-free card. Dad sells drugs? Tragic, but he's providing. Dad poisons a child? Dark, but he's desperate. The actions are monstrous, but as long as he's staring at a baby monitor or talking about college funds, it feels like a sad necessity instead of what it really is. To be fair, TV has trained you for this. From mob bosses to vigilantes, family is the magic word that turns villains into anti-heroes, and the camera helps. A lot. We ride shotgun with Walt's point of view almost the entire series. We're in the car when he panics. We're in the lab when he justifies. We're in the crawl space when he laughs. But still, another missed opportunity. We almost never sit with his victims the same way. We don't stay with Jane's dad after the crash. We don't live in Andrea's apartment after Brock gets sick. Their pain is a quick cutaway. Walt's pain gets the full monologue. So his rationalizations start to feel like your rationalizations. He has cancer. He just needs a nest egg. He's in too deep. And here's the thing. A lot of viewers cling to that cancer excuse long after it stops matching what he's actually doing. He hits his financial goals multiple times. He turns down the car wash buyout that would fix everything. By the time he's sitting on more money than he can launder, "I'm doing this for my family" is about as convincing as his fugue state. Pattern interrupt. When did you stop buying it? Was it Jane, the plane crash, Brock? Or did some part of you keep rooting for him all the way to, "I did it for me. I liked it," and just quietly pretend you didn't? Because that's the uncomfortable mirror. Walt's lie works on him for the same reason it works on you. It's easier to believe in a tragic hero than a prideful villain. And if the show can bend your empathy that far for him, what else can it get you to excuse once Heisenberg is fully in control? That's where we're going next. The moment the mask stops being a mask, and why walking away becomes impossible once Walter decides the lie isn't big enough anymore. The mask stops being a mask when you realize there was never a second face underneath. It was the same guy the whole time. He just stopped pretending to be small. Fans love to split it. Walter White over here, Heisenberg over there. One is the awkward, coughing chemistry teacher in beige. The other is the hat, the shades, the monster. It's a comforting split, right? You get to say, oh, that wasn't Walt, that was Heisenberg. Like the evil twin walked in and stole his body. But here's the thing, the show keeps quietly shredding that idea. Think about it. The pride, the resentment, the need to control everything in the room, that's all present in episode 1. Before the RV, before the name. Before he even shaves his head, you see it when he rants to Walt Jr. about the car wash owner, when he snaps at the rich ex-partners who rescued him with gray matter, when he refuses their offer to pay for his treatment because it would mean admitting he failed. That's not Heisenberg waking up. That's Walter White already furious about being underestimated. The laboratory equipment of his soul was installed long before the cook. Watch how Walter behaves at home. When Skylar starts asking questions, he doesn't suddenly become a different person. He just applies Heisenberg tactics in a domestic setting, gaslighting her about the second cell phone, spinning elaborate half-truths about fugue states and weed from Jesse, weaponizing his cancer, his weakness, his coughing, to guilt her into backing off. It looks like scared husband mode, but if you slow it down, it's the same manipulative chess he plays with drug dealers. With Jesse, it's even more evident. Mr. White, the teacher, is supposed to guide, protect, mentor. Instead, he intimidates him, undermines him, and pushes him into ever riskier deals. The "I watched Jane die" confession? That's not a split personality talking. That's the same man who humiliated a student in class for not respecting chemistry, now humiliating his surrogate son to keep him in line, and then flip it. Look at Heisenberg in the desert after Hank dies. The way he falls to his knees, clawing at the dirt, choking on his own sobs. No hat, no speech, no control. You can't just file that under the mild-mannered Walter White persona and call it a day. The monster feels things. The ego is devastated. To be fair, if this were really a clean alter ego, you'd expect icy detachment. Instead, you get a man whose pride just watched his empire and his family implode in the same 10 minutes. So hear me out. Heisenberg isn't a mask he puts on. It's a permission slip. It's the story he tells himself that finally removes the social breaks. No more PTA meetings. No more fake gratitude to rich friends. No more pretending he's okay with being the guy everyone overlooks. And if that's true, then the question, why couldn't Walter White stop, flips into something darker. Once he's tasted the version of himself that feels big, powerful, undeniable, why would he ever want to go back to being the smaller version? The real mystery becomes, what could possibly be strong enough to make him even consider giving that up? So when he finally tastes that bigger version of himself, you're not just watching a moral slide. You're watching a habit form, a cycle, an addiction. Think about it. Walt's story lines up almost beat for beat with a classic addiction arc. The noble-sounding justification, the slow escalation, the denial, the loss of control, and the "I swear this is the last time" speeches that never actually mean anything, the first cook. On paper, it's about paying for cancer treatment and leaving some money for the family. At the time. But in the shower right after, he's buzzing. He can't keep his hands off Skylar. That's not a guy crushed by guilt. That's a guy high off the rush of getting away with something huge. Then it escalates. More cooks, bigger scores, riskier moves. Every time he crosses a new line, he finds a fresh excuse. The college fund, the new baby. Just until I hit this number. It's the same logic as just one more hit. Dressed up in dad language so he doesn't have to admit what's really going on. Because here's the thing. Power is the drug. Respect is the drug. Fear is the drug. The moment he becomes Heisenberg, that black hat might as well be a needle. When he walks into Tuco's with fulminated mercury, when he stares Gus down in the super lab, his brain is lighting up. The show doesn't put it in neon, but it's obvious in how he carries himself. He's not enduring this, he's enjoying it. And those "I'm out" speeches? They're textbook addict promises. Season 1 after killing Crazy 8, Season 2 after Jane dies, Season 5 when the storage unit is literally full of more money than he can launder. Every time he hits a milestone that should be a clean exit. Every time he claims he's done, and every time the moment a new opportunity or threat appears, he's right back in. But still, another missed opportunity to actually walk away. Each escape becomes its own kind of high. He survives Tuco, outsmarts Gus, slips past Hank's suspicions again and again. To be fair, if you kept beating death and the DEA, you might start to feel untouchable too. But that's the addiction talking. Every successful dodge is a hit of invincibility that convinces him the rules don't fully apply. So when people say, "He had enough money, why didn't he stop?" they're misreading the whole situation. You don't ask a meth addict why they didn't quit the second they could pay rent. You understand the rent was never the real target. Same with Walt. The financial goal is a cover story. The real chase is that feeling of being Heisenberg. And once you see him as a power addict, another question opens up. What happens when the supply of that drug starts to dry up, but the craving doesn't? So if Walt is a power addict, the next question is, how does the show keep you believing he might quit, long after that's obviously a lie? The answer is in the narrative design. Breaking Bad is built to hide and reveal Walt's truth in slow, almost surgical increments. The pacing comes first. Every step down feels tiny. One cook to pay for treatment, one murder in self-defense, one lie to keep Skylar calm. At the time, each move feels manageable. You can rationalize right along with him. He's doing it for the family. He has no choice. The writers stack these micro-choices so gradually that by the time he's poisoning kids and blowing up nursing homes, you've walked the whole path with him and barely noticed your own line moving. Think about it. They almost never jump from teacher to monster in a single episode. They give you a buffer, a crisis, a bigger villain, Tuco Gus, the cartel. Each new threat is a narrative red flag that should expose Walt as the problem, but still, another missed opportunity. The danger keeps giving him plausible excuses to stay in the game. Then you've got the visual motifs quietly tracking who he really is. The color green starts as his bland, sickly wardrobe, then becomes money, then that iconic green shirt and jacket when he leans into being Heisenberg. The hat is even louder. Early on, it's a costume, a joke. Over time, you notice something suspicious. Walt only really feels confident when the hat is on. It's not an alter ego, it's his preferred self. The lab does the same thing. The RV is chaotic, improvised, full of fear. Gus's super lab? Clean, controlled, almost holy. When Walt walks that catwalk in his yellow suit, it's shot like a king entering his throne room. The space itself is a clue that his identity is now welded to the criminal world. You don't just walk away from your cathedral. Key episodes slam this home. Fly traps Walt and Jesse in the lab with nothing but guilt and obsession. Hear me out. That whole monologue about his perfect death window is the show admitting he already passed the point where he could have died a sympathetic man and he kept cooking anyway. Ozymandias then rips away every rationalization in 1 hour. Family gone, money gone. Pride is the only thing left standing in the desert with him. By the finale, when he says, "I did it for me," it's not a twist, it's a confirmation. Vince Gilligan told you from day one, Mr. Chips to Scarface. The destination was never in doubt. The tension comes from how long you, like Walt, pretend the transformation isn't complete. So if the structure is designed to make you collude in his lie, what does that say about you? Sitting on the couch, rooting for Heisenberg. And when exactly are you supposed to want him to lose? So let's test that, right now. You've been colluding with Walt's lie this whole time. But when you zoom out and actually count the bodies, does he still feel like the guy you were rooting for? Start with Jane, the overdose. The moment Walt stands in that doorway and watches her choke, this is the first obvious fork in the road. He could step in, save her, walk away from the game with Jesse, the money, and his soul mostly intact. Instead, he lets her die because she's a threat to his control over Jesse and the cash. One tiny movement of his hand, and he trades a human life for the illusion that he can still steer this thing. Then Gale. Friendly, harmless, karaoke singing Gale. Walt is literally offered a way out. Gus will keep him alive, take care of his family, and put Gale in the lab. Walt could accept the retirement package. To be fair, it's not exactly a normal pension plan, but still, another missed opportunity. He chooses to have Jesse pull the trigger, because the idea of being replaced is a bigger red flag to his ego than the idea of turning his student into a murderer. Hank is the ugliest version of this pattern. Walt has so many off-ramps before that desert showdown. He could confess when Hank finds the leaves of grass. He could take the deal with Jack and walk away. Instead, he tries to script it all. The phone call, the money, the "you're the smartest guy I know" speech. He thinks he can outtalk fate, and the more he tries to choreograph the outcome, the more brutal and chaotic Hank's death becomes. And that's just the named casualties. Think about it. Every blue baggie on the street is another anonymous victim of his product. Add Andrea, add Brock's poisoning as leverage, add Skylar and Walt Jr. emotionally nuked, living inside a crime scene instead of a home. The family he claims to be protecting is the one he methodically burns down. Here's the thing. Every loss tracks back to a moment where he could have stopped. After the first cook, when he's exhilarated in the shower, after he hits his money goal, after the car wash buyout, each time the clue is evident. He doesn't want out, he wants more control. And the more he grabs for it, the more out of control everything gets. Which is why that final image matters so much. Walt dying alone in the lab, caressing the equipment like it's an old friend. No Skylar, no kids, no Jesse. Just stainless steel, blue meth, and the one thing he truly loved, being Heisenberg. Hear me out. Is that tragic, monstrous, or both? Pattern interrupt for you. If you still feel satisfied by that ending, what does that say about the kind of monster you're willing to follow? As long as he's really, really good at what he does. So let's actually answer it. Why could Walter White never stop? Why does a guy who just needs a few $100,000 end up sitting on a dragon? Hoard of cash he can't even spend? Here's the thing. The meth didn't just fix his bank account. It fixed his ego. It solved his identity problem. For 50 years, Walt has been the guy who missed out on gray matter, missed the credit, missed the respect. On paper, he's a genius, but in real life, he's washing cars and getting mocked by his students. The cancer just gave him a deadline. The meth gave him a story where he finally mattered. Think about it. Gray matter is the original wound. He walks away, they become billionaires, and he's left with a box of old photos and a lifetime of resentment. That's pride. When he puts on the hat and calls himself Heisenberg, he's rewriting that humiliation. He's not the guy who got pushed out anymore. He's the guy everyone fears, the name on the street, the artist behind 99% Pure. The power isn't a side effect, it's the point. And then you layer on the myth of the family man. I'm doing this for my family lets him turn that power trip into a noble sacrifice. It's the perfect cover story. To be fair, at the time of the pilot, he does need money. But here's the obvious red flag. He hits his goal more than once. The car wash offer, the pile of cash bigger than his living room floor, the barrels buried in the desert. Every time he could walk away cleaner. Every time, he finds a new reason to stay. Why? Because stopping would mean admitting his whole life before Heisenberg was small. It would mean going back to being ordinary, accepting that gray matter is gone, that his perfect death window in Fly really did pass, that his moment of greatness is over. His ego just cannot tolerate that. Walking away isn't just leaving the business. It's killing the only version of himself that ever felt fully alive. That's why his final confession to Skylar hits so hard. I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. People treat that like a simple, yeah, I'm selfish moment. But hear me out. That's Walt admitting Heisenberg wasn't a mask. It was the truest version of him he ever allowed into the light. The cautious teacher, the meek husband, the harmless brother-in-law Hank keeps underestimating. Those were the disguises. So now you have to ask yourself, was there ever a real version of this story where he walks away? Or from the second he steps into that RV in the desert, was this ending already baked in? All the clues sitting there in his pride, his power, and his need to finally be seen? Pattern interrupt for you. If you rewound to the pilot and froze time, what single choice would you change to actually break that inevitability? And here's where it stops being just Walter's story and starts being about you. Because think about it. Part of why this show hits so hard is that his excuses don't sound like cartoon villain speeches. They sound like the stuff regular people say when they want something just a little too much. I deserve more. I was cheated. I'm doing this for my family. That's not Alien. That's Tuesday. The show keeps handing you those lines until they feel obvious. A brilliant chemist stuck teaching high school. A failed startup that made his friends rich. A cancer diagnosis that makes every sacrifice feel justified. At the time, it all scans. You get why he's angry. You get why he's desperate. The red flag is that you also get why he thinks the rules shouldn't apply to him anymore. Here's the thing. Breaking Bad is basically a 5-season warning label about the stories we tell ourselves. Ambition? I'm just reaching my potential. Resentment? I'm only taking back what the world owes me. Control? I'm protecting the people I love. The motives sound noble, but the show keeps slipping you clues that they're masks. By the time Walt admits, I did it for me, I liked it, I was good at it, it's not a twist. It's the confession you knew was coming. And if you're honest, everyone has a tiny version of Heisenberg living rent-free in their head. Hear me out. Maybe you'd never cook meth in an RV, but if you could be untouchably successful, feared, respected, and never caught, that fantasy of walking into a room and everyone finally seeing you, that's not unique to Walt. The difference is, he gets to test it in the real world. The show keeps putting him at off-ramps you recognize from your own life. Season 1, after the first cook, he's exhilarated in the shower. That's not regret, that's adrenaline. Later, the car wash buyout offer could solve his money problem. He says no. When he has more money than he can launder, he still wants more territory. Each moment is an exit. Each time, he speeds past the sign like it's another missed opportunity to finally be the guy in charge. So the uncomfortable question the show throws back at you is, where are your off-ramps? The job that's quietly eating your entire identity. The grudge you keep nursing because it feels powerful. The need to win every argument. At what point do you step back before the price tag jumps from stressful to catastrophic? I want to know your read on this. Drop the exact episode where you think Walt crosses the line from sympathetic to irredeemable, because that moment says as much about you as it does about him. So now that you've planted your flag on, this is where Walt breaks for me, I want you to do something a little twisted. Rewatch it like a detective. Not looking for who Heisenberg is, but looking for all the clues that Walter White was never going to stop. Start with the pilot, the RV, the first cook. Watch that shower scene again where he comes home to Skylar. He's supposed to be traumatized, right? But look at his face, the way he grabs her, with sudden confidence. That's not a broken man. That's a guy high on, finally feeling powerful. Think about it. That's clue number 1 that the cancer story is only half the truth. Then jump to Fly. On paper, it's a bottle episode. At the time, a lot of people even called it filler. But here's the thing. It's one of the clearest windows into Walt's brain. Listen to how obsessed he is with the perfect moment he should died. He knows he passed the exit ramp. He knows he kept going because he liked being in the game. Watch his pauses. The way his voice softens when he talks about leaving money behind versus leaving the empire behind. Which one actually hurts him? I see you as another big one. Walt in the hospital watching Hank fight for his life after the cousin's attack. Track every time he says something like, "for my family" in that stretch. Then immediately look at what he does next. Does he sit at Marie's side and comfort her? Or does he keep maneuvering around Gus, trying to protect his position? To be fair, he is in danger. But still, another missed opportunity to just walk away. Do the same thing with Ozymandias. Everybody remembers the big moments. Hank in the desert, the knife fight, the phone call. On your rewatch, zoom in on the micro expressions. The half second where Walt hesitates before rolling that barrel away. The flicker in his eyes when he sees Holly in the fire truck mirror. You can almost see the war between Family Man and Kingpin, and it's pretty evident which side keeps winning. By the time you hit the finale, make it a game. Every single time he says or implies, "this is for you" to Skylar, Walt Jr., or Holly, ask yourself, does the next scene actually line up with that? Or is it about his legacy, his name, his pride? Hear me out. Once you start tracking it, "for my family" becomes the most suspicious line in the entire show. Comment challenge for you. Drop the exact scene where you first realized Walt was lying to himself about why he was cooking. Not lying to Skylar. Lying to himself. And if you like watching the show this way, picking apart tiny clues and missed red flags, stay with me. We've got more deep dives into Walt, Jesse, Gus, and all the little character choices that quietly change everything. So let's bring it back to the real question. Not just why didn't Walter White stop, but do you honestly think he ever truly intended to? Think about it. From the very beginning, the clues are all over the place. That first cook in the RV, the shower scene right after. He's not shattered by what he's done, he's buzzing. He's touching his body like he can't believe he just pulled this off. That's not a man broken by necessity. That's a man high on power. Then the off-ramps start piling up. The money goal is hit, then hit again, then buried in a storage unit so full of cash. Skylar can't even look at it without wanting to throw up. That's the moment the show makes it obvious. The "I'm doing this for my family" story is dead, but Walt keeps telling it anyway, to Skylar, to Jesse, to himself. And every time he says, "I'm out," but here's the thing. He immediately finds a reason to stay in. The car wash offer that would solve the money problem. The chance to disappear with the vacuum guy. The cancer going into remission. Each one is a clean exit. Each one is another missed opportunity. By the time he's talking about an empire, it's not even subtle. Heisenberg isn't a mask he puts on for work. It's who he wants to be full-time. The hat, the name, the reputation. Season 5 Walt with the territory grabs and the "say my name" moment is just Season 1 Walt's shower thrill, scaled up to a monster. And then you get the final confession to Skylar. "I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. Hear me out." That line doesn't reveal a change. It reveals what was true the whole time. The thrill in the shower, the stubborn refusal to sell the car wash or walk away, the smug pride in that storage unit. It all points to the same thing. So here's your mental poll. Option 1, yes, he could have stopped, but chose not to. Option 2, no, once he started, his psychology made stopping basically impossible. Which side are you on? Drop a comment with your vote and, even more specific, the exact episode where you think Walter White officially becomes Heisenberg. The point where, for you, the mask stops being a mask. Is it the I am the one who knocks speech? The Jane moment? The say my name scene? Or something quieter, like that first shower, when he smiles to himself, and you realize this meek chemistry teacher just found something he's never going to give up. If you want to keep unpacking clues like this, stick around. Check out the breakdown on Hank's investigation, Jesse's slow-motion collapse, or another deep dive waiting on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, and keep watching Breaking Bad the way it was built to be watched, catching every obvious red flag we all missed the first time.